When people come to visit the garden, they always ask me, what the heck is this thing? It's quite a unique design. As far as I know, I've never seen it anywhere else. It's worked extremely well for the last 12 years. And I think it's time I made a video to show you why I built it, how it works, and how to build it. And I'll divide the video in 3 sections, just like that. This area here is my trial garden. When I get new plants or I grow things from seed, I like to trial them out in an area that I can keep an eye on. I have a water line right behind the camera so they get watered properly. They're near the shed, so I come out here all the time looking at them and I can keep an eye on them. Then I watch them grow and decide if the plant is good enough to go out into the garden. The problem is that this area is full sun, and I like to grow a lot of shade-loving plants. So I either had to create another area to do my trial garden in the shade or figure out some way to grow shade plants here in the sun. And so I built this shade tent. Now originally I looked at other designs. I figured on building a bigger structure, more like a greenhouse that has shade cloth on it instead of glass. But that was going to be a lot of work. And remember, I'm in zone 5, so we can get a fairly heavy snow load. So whatever shading I put up here, it has to be able to take the snow. That means the structure has to be a lot stronger, the shading material has to be stronger, and so on. And I thought, you know what, that's just too much work. So what do the plants really need? Well, they only need some shade. And quite honestly, most shade plants, especially when they're seedlings, are short plants. So I only needed something that was about this tall. So I came up with this idea. Now I still have a problem with snow load here, but I solved that by taking the top off in winter, and that eliminates my snow load. The other reason I needed something like this is that there's woods right over here, and I get a lot of rabbits here in the winter, and they come up and they eat everything. So this is one of their favorite places to dine. So I also have the sides closed in with netting. So this is rabbit-proof, sun-proof, perfect for growing shade seedlings. Now let me show you how it works. Most of the time it just sits like this. And I can even water through this because this is a porous shade cloth. But if I want to get in here and do some work, I just lift one side up. Now I can go in and work on the plants. I can water them more closely or fertilize them, or just see what the flowers are looking like. I only do that about once a week, so this is not an inconvenience. When I'm finished, I simply flip it back. The extra sheet at the front gets folded down, and a couple of rocks hold it in place. The other side works exactly the same way. Now in fall, I'll take this top off. Now I'm not going to show you that, but I will show you how I put it on, which is the trickier step. So what do I do with this thing in the winter? Well, I take it down to my potting bench, and I just lean it up against the bench. And I put a rope around it to make sure it doesn't fall over in the wind. That means that it's sitting mostly vertical. I don't have to worry about snow load, and it just sits there all winter long, completely out of the way. Now this job would be easier with 2 people, but I can just about manage it by myself. You'll notice that one end has extra cloth on it. That's going to come down the front, so we have to make sure we orientate it the right way. This is the front of it. Still stuck. There we go. I have some little metal brackets here to help hold this in place. The fronts fold down, and I just use some rocks to hold them in place. Now let's have a closer look and see how it's built. On the corners, I've just got some simple 1.5-inch boards. It'd be almost anything here. They go into the ground about this far. Remember, we're not holding a lot of weight, so we just need enough depth so that it's relatively stable. And as you can see, they're not that stable, but this works just fine. 2x4 running this way for the side. That will then hold the top when it flops over. And the top is a little bigger, so it goes past here and sits on here. I put some very cheap plastic screening on here. That keeps the rodents out. And over the last 12 years or so, I've had to replace it once. This goes down to the ground, and I just lay a 2x4 on top to hold it down so that nothing can crawl underneath. Just simply staple it in place. The front is left open so I can walk in and out. In the center here, I've used 4x4s. Because I have both sides of the top sitting on here, I've made this a little bigger. And I put some metal brackets on here to kind of position this so it can't fall off. So when I put it on, there's a metal bar in the front to hold it in this way, and there's some side pieces that hold it this way. And again, a foot into the ground and you're good to go. You don't need a center pole. This sits all by itself. And the back one has a cross piece, so it's quite sturdy. The top frame is also made by 1.5 wood. Doesn't really matter what you use, but you want it light enough so you can carry it away. Put some little brackets here to make it a little stronger. Now at the back here, I have a 2x4 running this way that's in front of the post. That adds some structural stability for this whole thing. And then I have a 2x4 put this way, so I have a nice flat surface here. That catches this as it comes down, and it also allows me a place to staple the netting on. This post is done just like the one at the front. It's got a few metal pieces here to help hold things in place. The shade cloth is simply stapled on the frame, and I left the front longer so I can put it down and cover the front. Set of hinges puts these two together. That makes flipping easier, and that's really all there's to it. It's pretty simple. If you have all the material, you can probably build it in 2 hours. You can build this almost any size you want. Just keep in mind that once you fold it up and you want to take the top off, you do have to be able to manhandle that thing and carry it. My top pieces are about 4x8. That's the best use of lumber. So I have an 8x8 area that's covered. That's about all I can handle by myself. Not because of the weight, but because of how awkward the thing is. But you could certainly build it smaller, and you could certainly build a couple of these in a row. Each one would have its own top. So I hope that's been useful. If you're interested in growing things from seed, I have a whole series of videos to tell you how to do that, and I'm going to put a link to those in the top right-hand corner. I also have a great book, Plant Science for Gardeners, and there's several chapters in there about plant propagation. See you in the next video.